My son had known about Raider and had seen her on the various websites and Instagram from the department. Last Thanksgiving, I had my grandsons over at North Point Mall for pictures with Santa, and Officer Richie and Raider were there, and my son was with us, and so we got to meet Raider and talk with Officer Richie, and he was so precious with them, and the dog was just adorable. She let those little boys just play all over her and answered all their questions. But that was our first encounter.
I have a new puppy, and we were at home by ourselves playing on the floor, and I had some music going, and there was a big crash, and it sounded like it was coming from the basement. Normally I would have gone to the alarm panel and checked to see what the motion was saying in the basement, but we had our outside light electricity box struck by lightning the previous week. So when that was all repaired and done, then what didn't work was the alarm system in the house, so that wasn't working. So there was no way for me to go check and see if there was any movement in the basement. So I thought, well, it's probably something falling on the outside of the house, on that side of the house. So I got the dog and we got in the car thinking we'd drive around that side of the house and shine the lights on it and see what had crashed over there. But we got out there and there was nothing there. And then I realized I was stuck. I'm in the car and I don't want to go back in the house because if somebody was in the house, I would be walking back into it. So I called, and dispatch was very nice also. They kept me on the phone and told me they were sending out Officer Washington. And he got there and came up to the car and told me what they were going to do. And shortly after that, his sergeant showed up.
So I know several people from Alpharetta, Jason Owens, Jeff Garreau, and Cale Hamilton. We all graduated a class back in 2012 together. So those three and myself and our families have all become really good friends throughout the last couple of years. Obviously, on October 10th of 2018, we had Hurricane Michael roll through our area and just create complete devastation within our community. So after that happened, we were extremely grateful at the fact that Alpharetta Fire Department was willing to send down not only some of their personnel, but one of their trucks and trailers, ton of equipment, and then a ton of supplies to help some of us crawl out of the rubble that was created.
We had 5 guys from Alpharetta come down to help us post-storm. It was actually the day after it hit. And 3 of the 5 guys I'd known from previous trainings. Had the pleasure of getting to know them and doing some training with them. So that brought us really close. The other 2 guys that came down, I'd never met them before. They just loaded up on their own, wanted to come help us and our fire families down here in Panama City, and just through a selfless act, come down to help us.
I was at a concert on July 21st in Atlanta at SunTrust Park, and afterwards I was walking back to the car and I got lightheaded, and so I told the people I was with that I didn't know what it felt like to pass out, and then I passed out. I had blood clots in my lungs, and I passed out from that.
Always interacting with the public, always taking time to talk with anyone who would like to speak with them. They're always there to help. The department was doing some fundraising during the summer. The first little thing we got was a little Raider dog. And so I think we ended up with 6 of them. We got them for the grandsons and friend. She sits in a place of honor in our house. And then they came up with paw prints. After we won this, he brought it over to our house to deliver it. There were children in the neighborhood right across the street. So he came and I went over and got the kids and I said, there's a police dog over at our house. You want to come see her? And so they did, and he was so sweet with the children, and Raider was adorable with them, and they were just, it was the highlight of our day. It really was.
They went in through the garage and went through the whole house and checked everything very thoroughly and came back out, and of course it was nothing. But I just really felt so bad about calling because I just didn't want to waste somebody's time. But they were both so professional and kind by saying it's their job and they'd much rather that somebody call than be in an unsafe situation.
We knew after the storm that we'd have resources coming from the state of Florida, but whenever we saw resources start showing up on our doorsteps, our personal doorsteps from the state of Georgia, it just resounded in everything that we live and breathe as firefighters, where they showed up ready and willing to do work for as many days as they stayed. A lot of roof damage, a lot of drywall, fences down, trees resting on the top of the houses. Whenever they showed up with a multitude of chainsaws and cutting tools, tarps, wood, plywood to cover the roofs. A risk is a part of our responsibility every day, but whenever you show up from Georgia into Florida to help your brother firemen, it means the world. But I think all in all, they ended up restoring and securing 21 homes in the 3 days that they were here. So it meant absolute world to our community.
You know, we're brothers not just in the same department or the same region, but all over the U.S. And for them guys to show up definitely shows how important that is to everyone, and that it's not just words. You know, this job is a calling, and there's a lot put on the line. We leave families at home. We're gone a third of our life away from them, and when you talk about brotherhood, we see these guys more than our own families. And you know, them guys in Alpharetta, it's the same thing, and they're absolutely first-class people and first-class firemen, and all the citizens of Alpharetta should be very proud that they have those folks there to serve them.
He told my mom and the other people I was with to call 911 and everyone, and then he was trying to get me to drink some water and like talk to me and wake me up and everything. Then I ended up passing out a couple more times, and he woke me up. He practically saved my life there.
What a wonderful thing he's doing for the community. And by that I mean reaching out. I learned after all these fundraisers that he goes to senior citizens' homes and visits with the residents there, goes to schools, apparently also goes into churches, just besides doing their regular police duties. Those kind of things, being visible in our community, makes such a difference. My grandsons love to hear about him. I've lived here in Alpharetta for 27 years, and I feel that this is a very safe community, and I am just very thankful that they are here.
I am thankful that there are officers like him that work for Alpharetta Police and keep the citizens of Alpharetta safe. They want to go home to a family at night just like we all want to go home to ours, and I think everybody needs to support the police.
There were gusts upwards of 200 miles an hour come through here, and sitting here on the tailboard of this fire truck looking out behind me, you know, 75% of the trees that used to be here are gone.
I had an idea that they would be here at some point in time, but whenever I was standing in my front yard trying to tarp my own roof, and that Alpharetta Fire Department pickup truck and trailer with some of my closest friends showed up, the emotions that started to overwhelm me were absolutely incredible. So, you know, I'm certain that everybody else that they assisted within our community felt the exact same thing.
They came to town. They didn't ask if they could come. They just came. They know we needed help. Their priority whenever they came here was to help out the other fire families. First place they stopped was at my home. Well, at my home was my wife and my 2 kids, and my home was damaged and open, and you know, they were unsafe. And the moment that I knew that those guys were with my family, that was such a relief that was just unexplainable.
Not only to Chief Robinson, but all the other administration, we cannot thank you enough. Not only my brothers and sisters from here at Panama City Beach Fire Rescue, but I'm sure I speak for those that you assisted in Panama City Fire Department, for sending Cale Hamilton, Jeff Garreau, Jason Owens, Bruce Hartman, and Josh Kamen. Thank you so much for lending us your hands and your personnel for everything that they did for our families and our community.
That was incredible to see them guys excited to be here just to be able to help. They didn't care what conditions they had to sleep in, or what food they had to eat. It didn't matter to them. They were here to help, and that was all there was to it. If
you ever need anything, not only my family that shares my blood, but my family here at the firehouse and within our community is always willing to come repay everything that you did. Although I don't know that we'll ever be able to repay what happened and what you're willing to do for us, but any way we can, we will. I promise that.
It lets you know that there's still great people out here in this world.